Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The economic, political, and moral collapse of the military administration in Nigeria set the stage for the emergence of the concept of human rights, which brought about the formation of the National Democratic Coalition. The popularity of the group grew, and it became one of the frontline groups in the June 12 struggle in Nigeria. Joining us this morning to reflect on the past in terms of progress made and lessons that can be learned as Nigerians look forward to the future is Chief Ayo Opadokun, the General Secretary and spokesperson of NADECO. Chief, good to have you on the morning show.
Great to have you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes,
but
sir.
let me just again correct you.
Yes, sir.
I've never been chief of anybody, and I don't intend to be one until I go to the grave.
Okay, so it's simply Mr. Ayo Opadokun.
That is enough for me.
Simply Mr.
Simply.
Which was the Guardian policy
You
in those
remember,
days.
yes, but you remember how you have to abandon that. Chief Rotimi Williams wanted to retain his chieftaincy title.
I know the story.
Okay, so, but people like us don't they intend to
take a chieftaincy title.
We don't want to be part of that clique.
Okay, that's noted.
Good morning.
Mr. Opadokun.
Good morning.
Now, recently, NADECO had a press conference.
Right.
And you issued a statement, which was published yesterday in the papers. Now, you said in that statement that Buhari surprised and confused Nigerians by declaring June 12 Democracy Day. I mean, why the phrase about confusion? And then you had some demands. In his speech, as I said earlier in the introduction, before you came on set, I said, well, he seems to have addressed one of the demands you made about naming a national monument of consequence in Abiola's honor. Do you think he has gone far enough? Do you think that is adequate? Or you still insist on the extra demands contained in that your statement?
Oh, certainly. For us, the Abuja National Stadium after Abiola is a token of what we expected of them to do. But that is just by the way. And the place is crumbling now in the manner of the Nigerian state. That place has been abandoned. They spent huge sum of money to build that place. And it's already in tatter. I hope they will buckle up and then repair that place. But that's just one part of the story. Our categorical demands remain that June 12 will have no meaning, except and unless Nigeria return to federal constitutional arrangement upon which it secured its independence. Look, corruption, unemployment, banditry, and the likes, all these are symptoms of a malignant disease that is holding Nigeria down. And that is the centralist, unitarist government system that we are running. Nigeria has pretended and lied to the whole world enough that it is a federal government of Nigeria. There had been nothing federal in the Nigerian equation since the military took over on 15th of January, 1966. It was a negotiated constitution by the ethnic nationalities and nationalists, having regard to the fact of the recognition that Nigeria is an heterogeneous society with different culture, tradition, custom, artifacts, folklores, mores, and the likes. Under federal constitutional arrangements, each one of the component units will be able to have free reign of all these differences, but to coordinate at the center. That's upon which we secured our independence. It was the military politicians that came, subdued, thwarted, and prohibited the usage of the federal constitutional arrangement. That is the problem that you have. And until we solve that, there's nothing to be happy about. this unitarist, centralist military arrangement cannot stand.
So is this what informs your demand for a conference of the various ethnic groups?
That's the major reason. That is the major reason that when NADECO was presented to the public on 15th of May 1994, one of the major demands was that Abiola's victory should be annulled, and then they should be allowed to form a government of national unity, whose primary duty will be the convocation of a sovereign national conference to discuss meaningfully in a representative assembly of ethnic nationalities the national question. What is the national question? Because you and I, as we stay here, I don't know which one of you really will be honest enough to accept the fact that you have no making, you have no input into the making of Nigeria. Nigeria was not made by Nigeria. It was made by the British, colonialist, imperialist lord, who forced us into cohabitation. Each of the nationalities who have been living on their territories for thousands of years before the military came, and the British came.
But what would be the ultimate aim of this kind of a conference? Is
It
it
is
to
for
unify?
us to discuss, resolve, and conclude on if you agree that you are going to stay together, on what be the basis, what be the modus operandi, what be the rule of engagement. That's what they're supposed to do. That's why we said the 1960 Constitution should be the basic working paper. Because that was on the basis upon which we secured independence.
But Chief, if I may take you back, I mean, after 1999, NADECO was insisting on a sovereign national conference. There was the demand by the group led by Chief Enauro, the group led by Chief Rotimi Williams, that in fact we must renegotiate the terms of the union. I guess it was because of this advocacy that the Obasanjo government set up the National Political Reform Conference, 2004-2005, although that ended up with the politics of third term. And then when President Jonathan was there in 2014, we had another National Political Conference. So many of these issues have been debated. Are you saying that the outcomes of those two other efforts do not make any sense, and that what will serve the purpose is a conference of ethnic nationalities? Do we even know how many nationalities we have in Nigeria? We just know academically that there are over 400. So as a formula, how will you work out a conference of ethnic nationalities?
I can tell you that, some of us have spent a greater portion of our life working seriously on this matter. You remember that there was a pro-NACO conference,
yes,
pro-democracy conference, yes, pro-NACO.
Yes.
There's a working document. We listed out all the ethnic nationalities in Nigeria. So we will not have problem because we know the linkage amongst them. And the major ones who will represent how many of these ethnic nationalities, we know them. One significant fact I want to lay before you, because you are asking a question, whether those conferences were of any valuable consequence. I dare tell you that because the imprimatur or the military that brought some of those conferences into play were very, very overbearing. And Jonathan was one of their products. And what they did there, some of them are very devious.
President Jonathan was never a soldier.
He was a product.
How? He was not a soldier.
You should, if you don't, as a spokesman, if you never knew that, I'm sorry. They brought the man all the way from university to come and be the running mate by and Obasanjo, before the man was even trying to find his bearing as a governor, before Obasanjo pulled him out to come and be running mate to Yaradua. I tell you, we know more about this matter. The truth of the matter is that conference, remember that they were asking for 54 states. And you know the kind of the major things really that have bearing on Nigeria, they never discuss it, they never resolve it. So it is in our best interest for us to go back to the basics.
No, one of the issues that came up.
Please let me land. We are behaving as if it is Nigerians who demanded for this kind of nonsense that is going on. Nigerians wanted a federal constitutional arrangement. That was what it got in 1960. The military came and subdued that with suspension and the modification decree number 1 and centralized and unitarized everything in Nigeria. Why are we behaving as if we are momos, that whatever the military had done, we are saying that they're done for good? They've done us too much harm. Let's go back to the basics. The ethnic nationalities are not fools. And I dare say that anybody who is still imagining, thinking that you can continue to hold us into ransom by sheer force, is deceiving himself. Those who imagine that they've settled any matter about Nigeria at the war front or in Biafra, they must be jokers. The global community today is working very, very diligently on the basis of the fact that self-determination is the anthem of this millennium. Nobody wants to be subdued. Nobody wants to be under any subjugation of anybody. The colonial, the most grievous imperialism is Great Britain. They are facing their Waterloo now. The Welsh, the Northern Ireland, the Scotland. They will not allow themselves to be bamboozled into whatever Britain wants to do now. That's why they have a problem about Brexit. Northern Ireland, 82% of them voted to remain in European Union. And you want to continue to see United Kingdom of Great Britain. It will not happen.
That's a fair point.
Sir, isn't there a contradiction in the position of NADECO? On one hand, you are asking for a conference of ethnic nationalities. On the other hand, you are asking for self-determination.
No, that is it.
Mr. Opadokun had asked you a question about conference of ethnic nationalities and, self-determination, which you are also asking for. And I said, isn't there a contradiction here? Because we can assume if you're asking for a conference, maybe you shouldn't prejudge what should be the outcome of that conference. But it's like what NADECO is really asking for is self-determination.
Maybe our understanding of the two concepts are different. Self-determination has the totality of the import of federalism contained in it. That's what we're saying. Because all the crises of Nigerian nationhood, be it resource control, Niger Delta Avengers, IPOB, MASOB, OPC, Middle Belt Youth Congress, Arewa Youth Congress, and the likes, is towards totally abandoning the evident cases of injustice, unfairness, inequity that had governed Nigeria since the advent of the military into governance. We are asking that we should go back to the federal constitutional arrangement. That is the import of self-determination. Because under the federal constitutional arrangement, the component units have the free reign over their culture, their tradition, their religion, their language. One of the greatest dangers that has been done to us is this imposition of English language as a lingua franca. It has retarded us, to our greatest detriment. And Nigeria, being the most populous nations of the black people in the world, we have been the greatest failure. We have failed to provide manifest leadership that God had destined us to produce because we are using English language. Look, Chinese, do they need the English language for them to thrive and do all the scientific things they are doing? Little Korean, Japanese, Germans, and the likes. Look, in 1961 to 1964, under the late Professor Babs Fafonwa, they utilized half of the primary school in Oshogbo, Ife province. They divided them into two. One to be taught in Yoruba language from primary one to the end. One part with English. And the result was very manifest. That those who were taught in Yoruba language, they was better in outcome in everything. Now, because today, people have to grapple with how to understand basic things. In Yoruba land today, even from the womb, they'll be telling the young one that Yoruba is the vernacular. And in the primary school, he has to pay for it or be caned. So we have not been able to contribute anything to human civilization. So we are saying that it is time for us to go back to the basics. We secured independence on federal constitutional governance, and Nigeria was developing. I can tell you that I lived through that by the grace of God, that there was development, there was progress in the regions, in the component units. It was when the military came. By that supremacy of the decree, they centralized and unitarized everything. We started going down. And when they found that Nigerians were not going to take that for granted because of the import of the seriousness and I say the advancement of our judiciary. Section 666 today of Nigerian Constitution says that Nigeria, the judiciary has inherent jurisdiction. Because our judiciary and both the bar and the bench were trying to utilize that. You remember the case of Kikeloma Adamalekun in Ibadan in 1970? Because they told them that the military, you came in for a very short time on an emergency basis. What did they do? They resorted to manufacturing a decree called Supremacy and Enforcement of Power Decree in 1970. And with that one, they started putting in after clauses in all the decree so that they subjugated Nigeria till today. All that the regions created with their unearned wealth have been taken over by the so-called central government, and they destroyed them virtually. So we are saying let us go back to the basics, because the import of the centralist and unity government are led to injustice, unfairness in the distribution of economic and political offices and assets of Nigeria.
Absolutely, sir. Mr. Opadokun, I'd like to take a different direction to this conversation with you and pose a different question. You now mentioned corruption, unemployment, and banditry at the start of the conversation. When we spoke on reasons why June 12th can't necessarily have its substance today if we don't look into issues such as these. Now, of course, the president, both in 2015 when he made his inaugural speech and this year on June 12th when he made his Democracy Day speech, mentioned corruption, welfare, and employment as three main things that he wants to focus on going forward. What is the roadmap in terms of deepening one's democracy to ensure that we actually focus on these issues and achieve what we need to achieve, to ensure that these issues are no longer a threat to Nigeria's democracy? What would you pose as the roadmap for the next 4 years, taking corruption as an example?
Do you know, as I said it in my preliminary contribution, that these are signs and symptoms of malignant disease, ailment. The basic element is this idea of dominating your fellow colleagues. If you go back to federal constitutional arrangement, everything will fall into their places. In the First Republic, there was corruption, but it was manageable. There's nowhere in the world where there's no corruption, but it's manageable. But the situation where now all the resources of the Nigerian state, the major ones, are centralized and unitarized. That's why it is only one set of people who have access to it, because they have, through the conspiracy of the British, they've cornered the Nigerian state and have parceled out the Nigerian Commonwealth among themselves. Let me ask you this fundamental question. Who is a rich man today in Nigeria who was not made by the military?
So you've said this question, which was rhetorical, I imagine, and you've also said to Dr. Abate that even a former president in a democratic dispensation is a product of the military. We are currently being ruled by a former head of state. What needs to happen at this point? The announcement of June 12th last year as the new Democracy Day was radical in this climate where the utmost has been done to sort of subvert the legacy of June 12th. But what does President Muhammadu Buhari need to do at this point to finally shed that toga of general? And I'm thinking in terms of electoral reform, because we had a militarized elections, this 2019 elections, by some people was described as something of a sham. You have had your bouts with the military, you were incarcerated for 2 years. What has been done now with the liberty of civil society organizations, freedom of the press, what does President Buhari need to do to fully and finally break the shackles of the military? Because we're still under the shadow of military regime, are we not?
Well, thank you for admitting that. Like I said at another forum, was it 2 days ago, I don't believe that we are in a democracy. We are in a civil governance, so to say. All the basic ingredients of democracy are not available today. The Nigerian state will need to go to do one basic thing. President Buhari will need to act in similar fashion of Kemal Atatürk, the builder of the modern state of Turkey, in order to totally revamp Nigeria and return Nigeria to democracy. By doing that, he should call the leadership of the ethnic nationalities for a national dialogue to answer the national question. The national question is, first of all, for the first time, do you want to belong to Nigerians? Do you want to belong to Nigeria? You have not been asked that question before.
No.
And the second question is that maybe as a result of prolonged living together, we will say yes. But then it will be on what terms? What will be the rule of engagement? What will be the modus operandi? It is when we do that, that all Nigeria, we can now produce our own homegrown constitution, called it the grown norm, which will be fashioned by us. It is as then when we can do that, a constitution that all Nigeria can subscribe to, then that is the beginning of our re-emergence, a renaissance. Without doing that...
Opadokun, we'll take a break shortly, but there was a question I wanted to ask you.
Please do.
You said that Babagana Kingibe does not deserve...
At all. at all. At all. And I repeated that again, I think it was the Al Jazeera that came to interview me.
Well, on that note,
I must say it
we have to
quite
thank
frankly.
you very much.
Remember that the man sold out.